Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
So, I know a couple of times you've been over, a total amount of times. How many times have you been over in that way?
17 trips around the world, of which I think 12 would have been to Eastern Europe and Russia.
Great. So there's a couple of fascinating stories as well, I know, coming up. And I kind of wanted to go chronologically, so we're going to try to do that.
All right.
Here's another thing. Now, the people kind of get to know you now from speaking to you, and they see that you're willing to take some chances, go on your own, do your own thing. I know that there were, I think in the late 90s, not sure exactly when, I don't think it matters at this point, you actually spent New Year's Eve in Prague with a pen pal, a female pen pal, no less. And I know this might be a separate chapter, but I think that's a good story. Tell us how that actually came about. And did you ever think about how your life might have changed if something went forward from that?
It was a great adventure, and I'll try to set it up. I have been to Russia several times. I think I'd been there 5 times. No, I guess I'd been there 4 times. Anyway, when I would go the last 2 times, I would hire the same translator. Her name was Valentina, and she was a very bright woman. She's probably in her mid-50s, and we got along well. So she would hammer around the streets of Moscow with me, and if I met Russians, I'd be able to talk to anybody. And so she was just terrific, and she was a paid translator, but we became friends. And I remember Valentina and I were sitting in I think it was a street cafe somewhere in Moscow,
Mm-hmm.
and this tall, quite attractive woman with short hair came up and greeted Valentina, and it was a friend of hers.
Okay.
And so she introduced me.
Sounds like a movie.
We had exactly. We had pleasant conversation, but it was just very surface. This is why I'm here. Nice to meet you. Couldn't have been more than 10 minutes. And I never gave it any more thought. Well, 4 months later, I got an email from this woman. Her name was Irina Borshova. She asked if I remembered her and would I be interested in corresponding. I said, yeah, that's fine. And she said, I want to go somewhere and celebrate New Year's Eve in Europe somewhere. She said, if I let you pick the city, would you join me?
Wait, okay. So this is her coming up with the idea?
Her. Yeah.
So
this was her
now
idea.
The correspondence, email at this point?
Email.
I mean, you said email, right? Okay. So it's email. She had the idea. Now, this is interesting. I'm just thinking about this. Wow, this came out of left field, right?
Right.
Interesting. Go ahead.
No, and I said, well, sure. I had the opportunity. I had frequent flyer miles coming out of my Ying. So I had loved a trip to Prague. I've been to Prague twice before that. So I chose that city, and I sent her an email and said, can you meet me in Prague? And she said, love Prague.
Wow. Yeah. Prague's a good city. Yeah.
She hadn't been there.
Yeah. Jesse's been to Prague. I believe Kyle has too,
Yeah.
but Jesse said great town. Yeah. Great city.
Yeah. Jesse would know, man. It's a killer city.
Yeah.
So flew to Prague. I believe it was the 27th. And Irina met me at the airport. We had a 3-star. We went to a 3-star hotel called the Odessa Hotel, and we had separate rooms. And we just killed this. We crushed the city.
Wow.
It was the first, I want to say, sophisticated trip I took. Before I traveled with a couple pairs of jeans, couple shirts.
Mm-hmm.
You know the drill. But this one, I packed nice clothes and tuxedo shirts and bow ties and shoes because I knew that we were, that this was going to be a combination of James Bond and the Spy Who Loved Me and Peter Sellers in the Return of the Pink Panther.
Oh wow,
You
that's
know?
yeah. I
mean,
really was thought that it was something like the Adventures of the Greatest Spoon Player Philippe Bouchard, but you might be right.
yeah. And matter of fact, I played the spoons on that trip. We went to the Metropolitan Jazz Club. It was a little basement jazz club, maybe 12 tables max. But I played spoons with the house band. But Irina and I, we went dancing. We would dress for dinner. We did the cruise on the Moscow River, the midnight cruise on the Moscow
Wow,
River.
wow.
On New Year's Eve, we went to TGI Fridays of all places that opened up a big restaurant just off of Vaclav Square, and
Wow.
that Vaclav Square is also called I can't remember. Oh, Wenceslav Square, but that's the famous pictures from the '60s when the Russians invaded.
Oh, okay, right, right.
Yeah, big wide boulevard.
Wow.
But we met people from all over the country at TGI Fridays. I played the spoons, and we didn't buy a drink the rest of the night.
Yeah, I bet that. Oh
Oh,
my
I
God.
mean, when you travel, but people from all over, you just got to party with them like you knew them well.
Any
Um,
sparks
yeah.
between you and Irina?
I think, like I've said, it was a yeah, it was a great trip. I guess I would just like to maybe say that we did things that any young couple that was free and clear would do, on a New Year's Eve vacation in Prague. I
Beautiful.
mean,
Good.
she was delightful. She was
Good.
delightful.
Good. Bravo. Bravo. That's excellent. Have you spoken to her?
No, we corresponded after I got back,
Whatever happened?
and
Anything ever happened? You speak to
no,
her?
and we both got into serious
Yeah,
relationships
life
after we
changed.
returned home, and
Hmm.
uh, it just kind of quietly went away. I would certainly welcome to see her again, but uh, yeah, it was a great moment in time.
Yeah, that sounds like one for the record books for sure. No doubt about like I guess what they would say bucket list type thing, but that was a great one.
Yeah,
Now, later on, I think you took the Trans-Siberian Railway at some point,
yeah,
correct?
you betcha.
Wow. Now,
Bucket list stuff, Louis.
yeah,
Bucket
this is
list.
amazing. I mean, you once called the Trans-Siberian Railroad uh, a joy of solitude.
Yes,
Uh,
yes. Thank you for remembering that.
yeah, I remember that quote, a joy of solitude. Tell us what was that like, not when, what doesn't matter when, but what was it like? The food, the people on the train. I mean, another train ride. I think you've painted a beautiful picture of the different landscapes from all your trips. I think the Trans-Siberian Railroad, and it was a little more in the modern time because it wasn't that long ago. So
Yeah.
maybe give us a little bit, take us on that, and give us an idea of what that trip was really like.
Yeah. And you can take the Trans-Siberian many different ways. It starts in Moscow and goes straight through um, to Beijing. You can either go Beijing, China, or Vladivostok, which would be the longest reach. You could go to either one of those. So we were going to Beijing, and it takes 6.5 days if you ride the train straight through. A lot of people will get off at different places in Siberia and spend a couple of days, but we wanted to do it in a straight shot. So I traveled with a college friend of mine. His name is Dave. We met in Moscow, and we start traveling east. We start traveling east. The landscape changes many times. You get the cities around Moscow, and then you get to Siberia, and there's a lot of different things going on there. It's flat primarily. You go through Ural Mountains. Well, the Ural Mountains aren't that tall. Not compared to the Rockies, or even the Cascades. I'd say they probably like maybe the Allegheny Mountains.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
those aren't real. And isn't that in
Pennsylvania.
Pen-
Right.
Pennsylvania?
Right.
Yeah. But you traveled. You just had hours and hours standing in the hallway, looking out the window, or you could watch from your sleeping berth. But we spent all of our time out in the walkway, and we would meet people. We threw a birthday party for a woman from Oslo, Norway, who was next to us when we found out it was her birthday.
Nice.
We just got to know a lot of folks. And here's the strangest thing. The strangest thing. So in our car, we went up and down, met everybody, and there was a man and a woman that was traveling. They were Americans, and we thought that, well, that's odd, to have Americans on a train. Got to talking to them. Not only were they from Oregon, they were from a city called White City, Oregon, which is about 50 miles from Klamath Falls.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yes, I mean it was that crazy. And
Small world.
that couple, I'm kind of getting my head of myself, but they got thrown off the train in Mongolia because they didn't have the proper visas.
No, wow.
I mean,
Oh,
yeah.
boy. Oh, boy.
And it was probably 2-3 o'clock in the morning.
That's nerve-wracking.
So I never knew what happened to them. But anyway, you have tons of times with your thoughts.
Right. So that's why, I wanted to get to that, solitude. So you were able to really invest within, I could say.
Yeah, good.
And give, you want to talk about that a little bit? Or, I mean,
that was, you can, if you use that time and you're comfortable, and I think we have kind of talked about but I use the term, if you are comfortable sitting alone and thinking great thoughts.
Love it.
When you're on the Trans-Siberian, you have a massive amount of time to let your thoughts go. And what I was finding, as I was watching the landscape, or maybe even laying in the bunk, things that I'd never thought about would keep popping into my head.
Another pivotal moment.
And some of them would stick, and my mind would just kind of race around, an incident or a subject, and that's when the great thoughts came out.
Did you write them down?
No, I didn't. I just lived them.
You lived them. You didn't write them down. Now,
no.
I'm gonna not jump ahead, but thinking about those thoughts. What did the thought? You're a filmmaker now. And
right.
Did you think at all at any time during that time you were going to possibly advance yourself and delve into filmmaking, or not yet then?
No, and I think that's a very legitimate question. As in retirement, I was retired when I did the Trans-Siberian,
Mm-hmm.
so I've been fortunate. I could do whatever I want.
Urban adventurer. You were urban adventuring.
Do whatever I want when I want.
I like that.
And one of the great thought moments came when I started to realize that I had a problem with pulling the trigger on projects. I think I mentioned it. Pulling the trigger moment. You get an idea in your head, and you beat yourself up. Oh, it's not a good idea, or I'll screw it up, or it'll fail. And
story of my life, brother. Go ahead.
Yeah, so you're hip.
Very hip. Go ahead. Expand on this, because this, I think, is really kind of peeling the onion a little bit for a lot of people.
Yeah, and for whatever reason, that kept popping into my head over 6.5 days. And I finally, what I got out of that trip and that great thought was, screw it. You need to stop, bandying things about, go with your gut, pull the trigger. And when I got back to Klamath Falls, I went to my friend who I had done my first film with, and said, we need to jump on a project. And so no longer do I waste a lot of time, worrying about shit. You like the idea, you think it's golden, then jump on it. And if it fails, that's something else I realized through, starts and stops and failures. If you do something and it bombs, you wake up the next day, you
Yeah.
have coffee,
The
you
sun,
play
the
with
sun
your
rises.
dog,
The sun
sun
rises.
comes.
The sun
Yeah,
rises.
failure is not that
It's
devastating.
not that big of a deal. You're no, you're
Yeah,
you're absolutely right. So let me just say, so chronologically, so Trans-Siberian was in 2015. You had done this film in Georgia prior to that?
yeah.
Okay,
We did
so
that in 2014.
okay, great. So let me get into that. So because I didn't realize that. So I guess maybe the Trans-Siberian really brought out the thoughts about continuing to do things that were really on your mind that you were not pulling the trigger on, and
Yeah,
and what the hell. All right, so yeah, you were you got into the little bit of the filmmaking. You were kind of producing films and wanting to produce short films, that is.
yes, yes.
And what other place would be best than go back to Georgia to do your first endeavor, your first venture. So
Yeah.
let's talk about the filmmaking for a little bit, because I think that's a great way to morph into where you've gotten to and where you're going. So
Sure.
you decided to make a film in Georgia. Tell us about how that really the process started and how it got to be what it was and
Sure.
what the name of the film was.
Yeah, and I need to do a shout out to Cameron Nielsen, young kid that I met when I was tending my first retirement job at the Basin Martini Bar on Main Street in Klamath Falls. He was washing dishes. He was probably 21, 22.
Mm-hmm.
Long story short, when we would close the bar and clean up, we'd sit around and have shift drinks. And the
Yeah.
more we got to talking, the more I told him about wanting to do filmmaking, and he said well he wanted to do that. He was into photography,
Oh,
and
a match.
so between us we kind of wrote a rough script based on philanthropy and generosity that we wanted to shoot on the as a short documentary or short film in Tbilisi. So we started a GoFundMe. That
Yeah,
everybody
everybody
does
was
that.
doing it back then. Yeah, yeah.
And we were looking for $24,000,
Uh-huh.
which we thought was reasonable.
Very.
And when we closed down the GoFundMe campaign, we had $700.
So it was a success.
It was a massive failure. So Cam and I are sitting there. We're going, well, that kind of puts a halt in our travels, and we decided we're going to fund everything out of our pockets. Let's go over to Tbilisi and see if we can put a story together on why our campaign failed.
Great.
And
Okay,
so
so hang on a
that's
second.
what
I love
yeah,
that idea. I love that.
yeah,
But let's go back for a second. How did you sell Cam on actually? He's probably never been out of the country either, right?
right, right.
So how did you sell him on? Let's go to Russia, Tbilisi, Georgia. Let alone anywhere.
Yeah, he bright kid. He was, he kind of liked to live on the edge. He was a
Ah,
motorcycle. He was a what is it, a motocross
oh,
guy?
motocross. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but he had never been out of the country. He hadn't done even much. And I think the way he may have put it is, I saw an opportunity in front of me that was feasible to make this trip. Why wouldn't I? And so he was the camera guy. So he jumped in, and he did admit. He said that yeah, it was a bit unnerving for a kid that young and on his first trip, jumping into a part of the world very few people go to, which is Georgia.
Right. Great
And
experience,
he
though.
thrived. He absolutely thrived on that trip. But we made 1,000 mistakes, Louis. We made 1,000 mistakes. The good thing is we never made them again.
Right. Great.
So when it
Great.
came time to shoot our next film, we were way ahead of the game.
Right. So tell us a little bit about the idea with the Georgia film, because we never really delved into that. Tell us a little bit about that film if you can briefly, and then we can get on to the one I love.
Yeah, the premise of our original film was we were going to put together $3,000 in cash, and we were going to arbitrarily. The premise of this, I had gone to the farmers market in Tbilisi, and it was it was people just like me and my father and my grandfather, and they were just people that were working,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a huge farmers market, and some people were struggling, and that was their income, for the day. If they sold 30 beets, that would buy them food, but then there were others that were selling meat, and I thought, well, wouldn't it be kind of interesting to fund us walking up to somebody and giving them $3,000? And yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
how crazy is that?
Very right. So it's
Yeah.
completely crazy.
So when that fell apart, when our campaign on GoFundMe fell in a heap, we had to take whatever story would come our way when we got there. But through a circuitous route, we stumbled onto a story in Serovani in Georgia, and it is the refugee camp
Right.
for people that were displaced during the fighting in both Abkhazia and was it North Ossetia,
Which
I
is
think.
itself amazingly interesting.
Yeah, and so we're probably 15, 20 miles maximum from the border that now Russia controlled. But this was this was a refugee camp that the government built. Goes on, I don't know, maybe it's like 4 square miles. It was big.
Yeah, I remember some of the footage. Yeah.
And the guy that we were working with, Mike Mizaranta, who was a Georgian that we brought on board when we got there, he said, the farmer's market story is not a story. You want to talk about people in need, go to Tserovani.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So he arranged for us to get in. We went the next day, and this was, I don't want to say it was a game changer, but again, it added to, I think, both Cam and I's thoughts on empathy, compassion, and respect for common human decency. We talked with the administrator, and they said, "Can we meet someone?" And she said, "Sure." She introduced us to a family of a mother, her son, her son's wife, and they had a small baby. They had nothing. We went in and interviewed them, and they had absolutely nothing.
Yeah, I remember. You actually went
They
to
were
their
living on
place,
50
right?
bucks.
Yeah.
$50. I'm sorry. What was that, Louis?
You went to their place. I remember the shot of. There were a couple of great shots of them, right?
Yeah, we went there and interviewed them, and found out that they were displaced, and the mother had lost one son in that battle,
Right.
and she was down. So they had nothing. They were just living in extreme poverty. Extreme poverty.
Heartbreaking.
And and Cam and I never talked about it much after we left there. It had a huge impact on us. We left some money for them. By our standards, it wasn't very much, but it probably gave them a boost of about 30 days to be able to buy stuff. So that one stuck with both Cam and I. And since that time, I've been back twice and to give them money, and had Mike Mazeradza deliver them some money before. And it's I have no idea if the mother, who just a heartbreaking person, if she's still alive. She was in her 70s at the time.
Right. Yeah. You're a good man there, brother. You are a good man.
Well, I think we learned as much from that as they may have benefited. But I know poverty now. When I traveled, Jack and I, we would always go to the rough areas.
Mm-hmm.
I can remember going to Bucharest, Romania, and we stayed in a 1-star hotel.
Jesus.
Because it was a 1-star hotel. We traveled down at midnight to the Gypsy District to listen to music, and you see poverty, and there's nothing you can do about it. But hopefully it'll, as you're making life's decisions, you take into mind that there are tons of people that got dealt bad cards. I mean, I guess that's the best way. I'm not anything special on that, but I do have knowledge of crushing poverty, which kind of gives me another arrow in my quiver when I'm thinking about life's choices and things.
Yeah, it's admirable how you feel and what you've done, and spreading that and making that exposed, seeing it exposed. It's got to do something to the soul.
Yeah,
It
no,
really, really does. So you,
yeah,
you took care of that movie. You had to have you still got that bug back in Klamath Falls. You're talking to Cam. Shout out Cam Nielsen. Shout out Scrappy. Shout out
yeah,
being a new father. Congratulations. So
yes,
you're a couple of
absolutely.
years ago. You got the bug. You got to come up with an idea. You're talking to your man. You got to figure something out. And one of my favorites of yours, done in a great country, Havana,
Yes.
Cuba, called Los Mombises. Tell us about Los Mombises. Now, Los Mombises, if I'm not off, is really Mombises. I believe was like something to do with the guerrilla independence soldiers who
Yeah.
fought in the 1800s.
Yes. Yeah. And it means warrior.
Warrior. That's correct.
Warrior.
Warrior.
Yeah. So
Right.
you're spot on. You did good research on that.
Thank you, my brother.
Yeah. So after we Cam and I didn't see much of each other except occasionally at the bar. Then we decided, all right, let's start another project.
Right.
And we tossed around different things back and forth, and nothing stuck. Nothing stuck with both of us. So I got up one morning and was having coffee, and what I do is I go on YouTube and online and just look at random films
Right.
and random films shot by tourists.
Interesting.
And they're shooting things on the street. Well, this one popped up, and it was by a guy out of West Palm Beach, and it was just shot on a handheld camera. But he did a great job, and it was these four guys. They all looked to be in their 60s and 70s. They were street musicians, and they were playing outside of a hotel in the center where all the tourists come in and the cruise ship. But I got to looking at that film, and the faces of these guys, they were shop worn. They looked like they had really had to fight to kind of to stay alive as far as having any kind of a life
In that society.
yeah. But the faces just knocked me out. And I
Yeah.
showed it to Cam.
Weathered.
Yeah. And I showed it to Cam. He agreed, and I said, these guys have a story. I'll bet you they have a story or many stories.
What was the
What do
name
you
of the
think?
What's the name of the band?
Los Mombises.
It is. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, the film was named after the band.
Got you.
And I said, Cam, can you put a financial package together, and can we make this trip? And,
Wait a minute. He said, "Oh, let's just put the GoFundMe page together." Nope, that was a great success.
Yeah. So and I said, and of course your fiance or your life partner, Raina Rogers, she's invited. So the two of them and we went to Havana to see if we could meet these guys, and would they let us film them? Would they spend a couple of days and let us shoot a little short documentary? And I'll be damned.
You pulled it
Everything
off.
fell into place.
Another thing you pulled off.
Yeah, everything fell into place. Here's another thing. So we go with Airbnb, and so I chose an Airbnb, from the pictures, and our host, she not only became our host for our Airbnb, she became part of our production company, and she found us a translator,
Mm-hmm.
and she found us a car guy, a taxi guy.
Right.
So when we got there,
driver.
we went there with a team of a film crew of 3, and within 30 minutes of arriving, we doubled to 6. And that
Wow.
made all the difference in the world, having those additional people with skills that we really needed. They all contributed greatly to the mild success that film had on the film festival circuit.
That's right. It did have it. The name of the film is called Lois Mom. It's available on Vimeo. I'm going to also leave a link down in the description when we post this. You entered some film festivals. Take us through the process of that, because that's another cog that you experienced at trying to get into film festivals. I mean, talking about pulling the trigger there, pal.
Yeah. And I found out that here again, when I decided, okay, let's enter it in film festivals, but I just thought, oh my God, it's going to be labor intensive.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. It's the easiest thing in the world. There are two third parties that you can enter into any film festival around the world.
Got you.
One's called Without a Box. The other one is called Film Freeway. Film Freeway is clearly the king.
Do you pay for that?
No.
So,
yeah, you pay entry fees.
Okay.
So you can go on, and on any given day there are 3,000 film festivals over the course of a year going on around the world. Mm-hmm. And you can pick and choose and find the ones that you think your film will fit into.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and then you pay, you can pay as much as $200 to have your film considered to a festival, but you're not guaranteed it'll get in, or as little as like $5 to $7.
Okay.
So I studied. I'm not an expert on anything, but I do understand film festivals. Now, long story short, we ended up, I think, submitting our film to 45 film festivals.
Wow.
And the key is, if your film is screened at one film festival, it's a successful film, because it's 90% of the films that are entered in film festivals never see the light of day.
Right.
So if there's 100 films submitted, they're only going to show 10.
So you're actually up at the plate, and you're swinging, and most pitches are fouled off, and if you hit one, that's amazing.
Yeah. So our first film, funny thing happened on the way to Kickstarter. We were screened at 2 film festivals, one in West Virginia and one in Arkansas. We were ecstatic as new filmmakers.
Of course.
So we thought, if we can get accepted to 4 with our second film, Los Mom, we would be happy. Well, we were accepted to 13.
Wow.
Yeah, we were as shocked.
That's fantastic.
As anyone else. And they were all around the world. Down in Colombia, Poland.
That's great.
In Greece, Romania. I mean, we somehow or other, our little film kept filtering down that funnel against all the competition, and it would come out at the end and be accepted and screened. We had a film screened on the island of Sicily.
Wow, that's crazy,
and that was incredible.
That really is amazing. And now the film is called Lois Mom. Is it available? I believe it's available on Vimeo now, right? You're able to get
it. Yeah, it is available. I still need to, touch base with Scrappy. That would be Cam Nielsen, genius of a kid. But see how we can get it on YouTube so that when it pops up quickly. But
right. We'll figure. Yeah, I'll help you out with that too. I'm hoping. So,
and our film, we got accepted at 13 different film festivals. We were ecstatic, but we won 2 awards. We won Best Short Documentary at the Jukebox Film Festival in Reno.
Right.
And then the icing on the cake, the one that just we were gobsmacked. So we won Best Short Documentary at the Montevideo World Film Festival in Montevideo, Uruguay.
Oh my God, amazing!
And the kicker is just Cam and I, neither one of us speak Spanish, but our film is in Spanish.
That's right. That's right.
And at that film festival, all of the other films submitted were submitted by Spanish producers and Spanish filmmakers.
That's amazing.
Somehow or other, yeah.
And you didn't even pay anybody off.
No, you can't. Once your film goes in, you can't do jack.
Right.
It just has to stand up on its own. I got to say, it's a level playing field. Film festivals are a level playing field. Don't let anybody tell you, oh, it's
You think
rigged.
so? You believe that?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, we're getting films accepted in Greece, Romania.
I know. I'm just asking.
and all that.
I get it.
And
I'm just asking.
It's
I'm just asking.
based on its own. So,
Right.
yeah, I'm a big fan.
Okay. Lopi, what I call you, by the way, for everybody out there, why I have a lot of nicknames for Russ.
Yeah.
I know him for so long. We've been calling each other names like Lopi, Lopez, Sparky, Spanky. It's always some different name when we speak. So
Exactly.
it's a term of endearment, by the way. So
Indeed.
it's pretty funny. So Lopes, what advice can you give young, old dreamers out there for trying to get started on something or even thinking about, attaining some of their goals? I know you had the quote unquote pulling the trigger, but you're getting older out, we're experienced. Maybe there's something that, a voice that could be heard to people listening that might, take something from this.
Yeah. And I think it goes back to, and you and I have chatted about this, is that the great thoughts moment.
Yeah.
And I know that we kind of talked about that a lot. I think that anyone, if you have the discipline to sit and think great thoughts, yeah, you need to do that. I remember how I came up with thinking great thoughts. It's kind of a funny story, but I was at a cocktail party with some friends, and a friend of mine's wife, they were having some nice jocular banter about back and forth about him being lazy. And she said, you can't sit around drinking beer all day thinking great thoughts. And, we laughed. And years later, that always kind of stuck with me, and I laughed about it. But I realized not only should you sit around and think great thoughts, or can you sit around and think great thoughts, you should sit around and think great thoughts, because there's going to be stuff that comes out of them, whether it's just your own energy as you're kind of plowing through this thing called life, or whether it's making decisions about things that you want to do. So I think that's the big one. Spend time with yourself. Get inside your own head.
Not to be confused with just getting high, being happy.
No confusion.
Please don't confuse that. That's
Yeah.
off the record, by the way. And but also you came up with a good one the other day, which I thought was pretty good. The fact that nobody really talks on the phone as much. They're texting all the time. And you came up with a great one the other day called Message Moments.
Oh, you liked that, did you?
I did.
Thank you.
I did.
Yeah. And those that come in now, rather than, I guess, me talking to you, but there are text messages or messages that come in that are very significant, even though there is not a voice behind them.
Correct.
Yeah. So I just recognize the new technology. Let's not lose sight of the fact that, this is all energy. We're all energy-based people. This is just a different way of communicating. And so each great message moment I have, I sit and revel in it, even though it's not transferred to me through somebody's voice.
Right. Yeah. Well, Lopi, I got to tell you, great conversation today.
Thank
you. I
you.
think we learned quite a bit, many different things. I really want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for taking the time to speak together and give us some, not only advice, but just give us some information about your experiences, which I think as an urban adventurer, an urban traveler,
Yeah.
not only in the United States, but all over the world.
I've been very blessed.
Yeah, really, and not only that, I think believe it or not, you've come up with some great things, with the pull the trigger and just do the kind of things you want to do. Message moments, which I thought was a real good one, and it's funny too. A lot of times when we talk, we always end with one thing, and you always have one great advice for me, and. Yeah, I know. I think it's fun. It's pretty funny. We've been talking about this for 30 years, and whenever we hang up the phone, you always say, "Don't fuck this one up. Don't fuck it up there, Lopi. Don't fuck it up."
Can you think of better advice?
I can't.
Anyone?
I can't, especially now when we're doing this and we're open. We're real open to things. So don't fuck it up there, pal.
Yeah, and I do want to, you're very kind to have me on. I'm glad to be a bigger part of the project that you're working on. But I am not an expert at anything. I've just been able to, get to know a little bit about a lot of things. And I guess in my closing, on my travel business card, it says Urban Adventure Traveler. But there is my byline: I am never the smartest person in any room, and that has boded well for me over 30 years of travel.
And on that note, I want to say thank you very much, my brother. I love you. I'm glad that you're doing well, and I'm so happy that you're actually on this part of the journey with me, helping me producing Grind and Pivot. And to everybody out there, thanks so much for being here. Till the next time, peace out. Hey, everybody, thanks again for listening. Want to give a shout out to some people behind the scenes: John Hart, Ian Lidovich, Russ McMahon, and of course, my wife, Jill. Couldn't do without you. Please smash the like button, subscribe and follow us on social media at Grind and Pivot. Stay safe, stay well, peace.
Stand clear of the closing doors, please.